How did COVID-19 impact 2U? I know you were faced with the challenge of closures of offices across the country that were really critical locations for in-program field placements. How did you approach the need to pivot in the time of crisis while balancing needs of learners?
That's a great question. It's probably, the most challenging time in my career for sure. So just to give everybody a smidge of context there, one of the main things that 2U does is focus on students who are in degree programs online. So that could be an MBA program, for example, which is really straightforward. Students come to a course online, they interact live with professors and other students, and they call it a day, right? But for some of the other programs that we operate, like social work or nursing, for example, students do go to classes and so forth online, but then at some point they must go locally, hands-on, work with patients, clients, and so forth. So the really cataclysmic moment came when COVID-19 hit and everything closed, right? None of us was going to a doctor's office in person, say in March 2020, and we weren't going live to our therapy appointments, things like that. So what may have been a boon in ed tech, right? This moment where everybody's home, stuck online, and maybe, hey, let's go take a class, right? So we saw a lot of activity in the ed tech space, which was fantastic during this time of new opportunities and companies like 2U even experiencing more learners opting into education, which was great. But on the other hand, when all of these facilities shut down during COVID, I had about 5,000 students who could not go and do those hands-on activities with patients and clients. The moment came, and this I think comes from the DNA of being a scrappy startup, right? We certainly in 2020 were no longer a scrappy startup. We were a public company as we are today, but the scrappy startup in us really said, okay, well, that's fine. Facilities are closing down all across the country, but what is the opportunity here? What is our best case to make sure that these students can still move through their programs, graduate, gain licensure, and then continue to do what we're all here in EdTech to do, which is improve the lives of people and communities across the world. It was sort of like this moment of corporate entrepreneurship where we said, okay, well, what can happen online today? There are a lot of medical kind of ed tech solutions out there which allows students or practitioners to learn new skills online, right? I kind of joke, but I think it's probably true that you can go online today. And if you're a medical practitioner, you can figure out a product that will help you do open heart surgery, right? But the dollars and the funding really aren't in spaces like mental health. And we had a lot of students out there, mental health practitioner, aspiring students, counselors, social workers, et cetera, who didn't have access to online tools that could help them progress. So we built one, basically. What did we think about in that moment? So I thought, number one, what is the best value to the customer? The best value to the customer at that moment was to continue their education unfettered by the fact that live facilities were closed. Number two, is there a solution already in the market, right? And this is what entrepreneurs do constantly. Is there a solution in the market already? And the answer really was no. So again, our nursing and medical health students, we could siphon them off into online simulation scenarios that could help them bridge between the close down of COVID and into a moment where things were opening back up. So no, there was no solution. Number three, what would customers, in this case, our university partners, would they buy into a simulation that hadn't existed before for mental health based practitioners in, like I said, counseling, social work, et cetera? So we did a very, very quick scan of our customer base to ask them, interviews and surveys. Would this meet learning objectives? Would this be something that accrediting bodies would accept? What would have to be present and part of a product that we would put in the market that would make it a legitimate opportunity and solution and, value proposition for these end users, the students, and then what would an MVP look like, right? Once we got all of that data, and it was in such a compressed timeline, luckily everybody was home and we did have the access to these customers and they were eager, right? Because they had a problem to solve. So we went about building an MVP. So that's number 4, is what does an MVP look like? So the MVP in this case was a simulation of an environment that was a community health center providing social work and counseling services to individuals across a spectrum of mental health challenges that, we all face, whether they're individual mental health challenges or mental health challenges that impact a family and beyond, right? So we created a virtual environment of a mental health facility. We did that by engaging another group who was out of work at the moment, which was people in the film industry in Los Angeles, California, here in the US. So we tapped into a production studio who was very eager to put people to work in this moment. And so they went about creating, based on some outlines and frameworks that we provided, tied to good learning standards, a mental health facility. Then what we did was we also engaged live actors, again, who were doing this from their homes and were eager for work. We had them trained very quickly as clients, as mental health facility clients, people with typical mental health challenges that these kinds of facilities see. And we had those live actors trained to come to classes, live classes with real students who were continuing to practice their skills in the virtual context of this mental health facility, but then interacting live with actors who are playing the role of mental health clients. And then those students were able to, which they weren't in a real environment, have a professor say, wait, hold on, I'm going to stop you there. Ask this question and see how that develops your ability to reach this client in this one-on-one counseling session. The other students got to see it and learn from it too. So we created something better than we even thought in an MVP, right? We created a moment where the student was learning. It was a standardized client that we could control. The professor was able to give real-time feedback, and the other students were learning by virtue of being a fly on the wall in that moment. So that MVP was released within weeks, only to our university clients who were already on board. Very quickly, it became a part of our value proposition to other clients who may not have been doing mental health programs with us and other university clients at large. And here we are 3.5 years post COVID, and it's still out in the market. We're growing it, we're iterating on it. And that solution to a moment in time really became something that filled a need in the market that wasn't out there before. It's called the VFX. We're really proud of it across the company. The fifth thing I might add there is continual feedback, because that was really an experiment in the moment that did become an enduring product. But the constant feedback from all of the stakeholders, the university partners, the end users, which are the learners, and then things like the vendor in this case, who had really great feedback to improve the product.